basically everything anybody says. And again, and of course, if you ask 10 different guys, it's going to be pretty tough to satisfy all of them. You know?
10 different answers on what you should be doing.
Right, and that's one of the problems I saw too. That they ask everybody from the first match to the last match what they thought, and it's, you pick certain guys. You know what I mean? That's what I always did. I saw my flares. I mean, again, for me, it was always, I'll look at the guys whose work that I think is the best, and I'll ask them. And, you keep it to 2 or 3.
That's the way I do it. I definitely find my Shawn Michaels, my Triple H's, and my Undertakers and say, okay, what do you think? I think you suck. Well, you're right. But thanks for watching anyway.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: How? And this is something I've always wanted to ask you because it always comes up when I do this. I one night while doing this show, it was the night that I think Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight Championship, and I was adamantly screaming that there's no way that guy is a heavyweight champion. And we've had others in the past that I have said on the air, I don't think they're heavyweight, as I do finger quotations, champions. And the answer always comes back to, well, Shawn Michaels wasn't that big. And my answer to that is always, but Shawn, and it makes sense in my head when I say it, Shawn is a man's man. Shawn is somebody that can get in there with the biggest and the smallest and make a fight out of it. You always hear that, boy, I'd hate to run into that guy in a dark alley. Well, Shawn Michaels is the kind of guy that could run into that guy in the dark alley and hold his own. And to me, I always get that, well, Shawn Michaels wasn't that big when I talk about people not being big enough to be believable world heavyweight champions.
Right. No, I mean, and I agree with that. And I guess that's why, that was why I say that, again, knowing when to, to do the throwing down and fighting and punching and all that. I mean, there's a difference between people liking you. Again, it's like one of the times, somebody, I don't even know who they were talking about. It's like, oh, dude, that dude's over. And, somebody said, yeah, he might be over, but he doesn't draw money. And there's a difference,
Right.
And that's one of the things that a lot of people that, even people that watch wrestling, even in y'all's line of work, I mean, people that sort of watch it and review it and give analysis, things like that. It's one thing, like, I got news for you. You play music, the people pop. You know what I mean? They ain't popping at who's coming out or that guy ain't over. They're popping as a noise. It's Pavlov's dog. You know what I mean? It's just, but there's a difference between being over and drawing money. And, you do one first and then you want to get to where you're drawing money. And I think when it comes to drawing money, they've got to know that, again, I always use, Arn Anderson's words, when it comes to nut cutting time, they need to know that you're going to, they're going to fight somebody. And I think that, for whatever reason, I think people knew that, well, I say for whatever reason, heck, I mean, I know part of them thought of it, but people knew that there was some prick in Shawn Michaels. They knew that. It's like, man, I can, even when I was a good guy, I mean, I was enough of a bad guy, and of course, people, a lot of people knew enough about my real life at one time anyway to go, I know there's prick in that guy.
Like me. So, sounds like me.
So yeah, so, but I mean, that's one thing, and also I think, and if it's true about you, then, and you portray that truthfulness about you on TV, it'll come across, and people knew that if, again, he may not be the toughest guy, but if you were to get into a fight with him, and let's say you were coming to fight him, and you tripped, okay, and you're like, oh, son, they knew that I was the type of guy that was going to punch you right in the face as you're falling and get on you and just go as fast as I could, pounding the crap out of you, just so you wouldn't get up. You know what I mean? I mean, right. And so that's what I think helped me out more than anything. I mean, I think that they knew, like, Yeah, I wouldn't. You wouldn't trip, and I wouldn't. I wouldn't stop and then pick you up and go, let's fight. Let's have a fair fight. Or and I think they knew that. I'd look at you and say, look. I mean, I'll fight you, but then I don't want it can be kicking in the nuts and all that, or whatever. And then I call off and I kick you right in the nuts. You know what I mean? So, well, and again, I mean, and so I think that's. I mean, I think, and that does make a difference, though. I mean, they do need to know that, like, it's like I used to tell you. I've told Dolph Ziggler this. It's like, you want people. You're the kind of heel that's going to be like I was, which is like you want those guys, yelling at you on the other side of the barricade, talking about how they're going to beat the living crap out of you, and you go, well, come on over, and they always do the like they're gonna, but they don't come over because they're not. They're pretty sure. They are 90 sure they can take you, but all you need is that one little bit. I mean, that's the difference between, drawing money and not, to be perfectly honest.
We used to call it that 1% of hesitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
You bring up some good points there, and one of the guys that I kind of feel like falls under the category of, the crowd is behind him, but he's not drawing the money, is a guy like John Morrison. I like Morrison, but I don't know. There's just that intangible with him that he's just, I don't see him going anywhere right now.
Well, and his name comes up a lot. I mean, his name comes up a lot in all the interviews that I do, and the majority of people comment the same way you do. There's like, I like him, and it's like,
but,
and you know what, and he's a young guy, I mean, and it's like, for instance, it was my understanding that he just got injured. As much as you hate hearing about a guy getting injured, it's never good. But at the same time, I remember telling Cena when he got hurt, like, dude, they need to see you come back from that. You know what I mean? They need to know. I mean, it's part of the warrior making stage. You know what I mean? And so, I think John will. It's going to take him some time, but he's got to earn. Again, as you kids like to say today, and heck, you guys are actually my age, I'm sure. But but as the kids, as the kids say, he's got to get some street cred. You know what I mean? He's got to take some lumps. He's got to. I think. And again, I mean, he got to take on a couple scars, got to get beat up a little bit, but I certainly think there's potential there. I mean, he's certainly got all the physical attributes, that he needs. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I hear people comment, they're like, his promos need to, heck, that comes with time too. I mean, he's, you think about it. I mean, how long has he been doing it? 4 years?
Well, let me see. I think he's been wrestling since about 2002 when he won Tough Enough.
Yeah.
And the thing with Morrison, like I said, I think he's very athletically gifted. The parkour stuff is amazing. The stuff that he manages to do, in ring, I think is great. Now, granted, I'm not a big fan of his finisher because he never hits anybody with it, but you're right on the money with him because I think he's not a guy that's aggressive enough. Like, I don't really believe – to me, he's not believable that he's going to go out there and kick my ass, I think he's going to do flips and he's going to do this and that. And as far as the promo skills go, and maybe I'm wrong here. Feel free to let me know. But I kind of feel like the direction that the company has gone in over the last, several years is, back in the day, even the Attitude Era, you guys were given bullet points on what you needed to hit, but you were pretty much allowed to go out there and be yourselves and talk about what you wanted to. I hear stories all the time about these guys have basically lines they have to go out and recite. That's the promos now. They're written for them. They go out and do them, and I think that's probably part of what's hindering him personally is he's not able to go out there and do his own thing.
Well, and I think that's, again, to me, that's the one of the differences. That two, one. You don't have to, read everything they give you. It's up to you. I mean, I've sat there, my friend, and watched plenty of meetings. Like, the writers are just here to help you. They're they can enhance. They can either write it down word for word. They can write bullet points. They can do it any way you want to do it. And it's how much input, the individuals want to take. I mean, you have a choice to where you can sit out, in the building and watch, the people wrestling around and doing stuff, or or watching them, maybe training the new guys or having guys doing tryouts, or you can be back there in the writers' room, doing going over your promo and writing it and and sitting there and I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody gets that opportunity. You don't have to sit there and just receive your promo.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You have the option to give in as much or as little input as you want. And so, I mean, again, that's how it's been. Now, I don't know, I don't know if anything's changed since I left, but and that's, I mean, same with matches. And I guess that's one of the things that certainly as a guy that does it. I mean, and that's why, again, people will always accuse me of being, well, you're a company guy. I am. I mean, I make no bones about that. But I am because, you don't have to, allow your producer or your agent to, go over your match with a fine-tooth comb if you don't want to. You don't have to, have one of the writers to write out your whole promo if you don't want to. You can take as much initiative in your line of work as you want. But that choice is yours. Nobody's going to sit there and twist your arm and make you do it, though.
Right.
And so, each guy does as much or as little he wants to do in that respect. And a lot of it gets dumped in the lap of the creative guys. Heck, you can change stuff if you want. You can sort of go different directions. I mean, if it's god awful, horrible. Well, no, they're not going to do it. But I mean, I've never once heard anybody say, geez, he came up with a stupid idea. He's just the biggest dummy in the world. They just say, well, yeah, it didn't really work, but at least he's getting the creative juices flowing, and he's trying to start to have some input. So, I think again. I mean, I'm at a point where, I gotta. It's a catch-22 with the younger guys now because one, they do. I mean, again, you say like Morrison's been doing it since 2002. Yeah, he has, but I mean, his singles stuff, has only been about the last 3 or 4 years, and he's
still developing.
Maybe committed to. Yeah, I mean, he's still got some time, and again, I can remember the time, being in there with him and just yelling at him to hit me, and all of a sudden he just started unloading on me. You know what I mean? And, when we came back, he goes, dude, that was, like, so awesome when you did that. He goes, it's just like, wow. I mean, and I said, well, do that all the time. I mean, you don't need to have somebody to yell at you to do it. I said, you need to get, I said, it's got to get real. And I think that is the biggest, and again, he's a sweetheart of a guy. And again, that's what I think hurts you. You know what I mean? I just don't, I just don't think there's a real bad bone in that kid's body. You know what I mean?
Right.
And on one hand, again, the business is so much better for an individual like him being in the business. But you every now and then you got to you got to light a fire. I mean, he's got to come to that point to where I'm tired of. I've had that talk with a lot of guys. I said it's up to you when that point comes. I said, but you're going to have to come to a point to where look, and again, you got to run the risk of being buried by you guys on the radio. By all the by the internet guys or whatever. I mean, it's just, and I don't mean that to knock you guys or anything. It's just those are some of the risks that you run. What I mean? But you've got to sort of come to the decision of what I'm going to make it in this, and that's that. You know what I mean?
Period. Period. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And until they come to that point, it's going to be a slow process up until they make the decision to flip the switch.
Right.
So I guess I'm one of the many that are guilty of this, and I've always wanted to ask you this. Since you came back, when you came back and you had the great match with Triple H, and you went through the whole feud where you got put in a wheelchair, and you came back from that, and then you ended up winning the world title in the, I believe it was the Elimination Chamber, and you held it for a little while, but not for a long time, but for a little while. After that, I'm guilty of, because I'm such a Shawn Michaels fan, anytime you were in the main event of the pay-per-view or had a chance at the title, I was all over it. Did you just not, in that stage of your career, did you just not want to be the champion, or what was the deal?
No, I didn't. No, I mean, that's a full-time commitment, and the guy that does that needs to, make every show, do absolutely everything. And that just wasn't a, you know what I mean? The deal with me coming back. I mean, I still still worked quite a bit, but I didn't, I didn't do all the live events. I mean, I obviously was, taking darn near every WrestleMania after every summer off. I mean, as Triple H always points to, like, geez, he takes every summer off. I mean, that's just that was something that it was more important to me just to be able to come back and again, I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, I like it more the way I did it. I mean, I don't, I know there are some people like, well, but you only hold the world title this many times. You can't.
We just wanted one more run. One more farewell. We knew the clock was ticking. We just wanted one last hurrah. One more fight at the Alamo, Shawn.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I guess I understand. I mean, but I guess I never really. No, I mean, I never really thought about it from that standpoint. I mean, I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't think it was. I think the guy that does that, needs to be the workhorse. You know what I mean?
Right.
I in no way wanted to be. I didn't want to be the worker, of course. That's for sure.
Well, we were still thoroughly entertained. We were thoroughly entertained with your work without the belt, and you've always been that guy to me that doesn't need the belt to be over and to be, considered one of the top guys. You don't have to have the belt. You don't have to be chasing the belt. As long as you're in the ring, you're still one of the best, and you are the best ever. So,
well, I appreciate that, and that's certainly the way that at the end. I mean, I sort of liked that. Certainly near the end, it was like, holy cow! I mean, I'm losing pretty consistently, but it's so intriguing. I mean, I liked the work. I liked the depth of the work near the end. I mean, I was losing to Jericho, I'm losing to Taker, I'm losing to a lot of guys, but they were such cool, and pretty, in-depth sort of angles and storylines and stuff like that. It was just so fun to do that. I mean, that to me, to have a good body of work is more important than how many times you held a title or how many wins you had.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if you're reading your career like a book, which, there towards the end, it was very entertaining, even though you were losing from, a fan of yours aspect. You don't ever want to see your guy lose, and you don't want to see your guy lose all the time. But with you, the way you did it, coming to the end of the run where you had the match with Taker and everything, it was just like reading or watching a movie. There's only so much time left in the movie, and we've got to get to the end, and this is how we're going to get there. And you being upset, questioning yourself, Triple H questioning whether you lost your mind, and everything that you did going into that last round too with the Undertaker was just like the end of the well-written movie, and it worked.
Yeah. Well, and again, that is. I mean, that to me is the. That's the enjoyable part. I mean, it really was. I mean, that process and again, taking people on a ride and having to be an emotional ride and something that they enjoy. And so again, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better way to go out and and then coupling it with the Hall of Fame and my buddies and everything else. It's been a pretty sweet ride, that's for sure.
I've literally over the last couple of days, not that I needed to, but I like to go back and watch matches because, like Trey, you're my favorite of all time as well. I've followed you for many years, and, again, we're both, proud to have you on the show. But going back and watching some of your matches over the last couple of days, it's hard for me to even narrow one down that I would consider my favorite because literally since 2003, you've stolen the show at WrestleMania every year. The match with Angle was fantastic. You and Jericho was
I got to go with Jericho.
Obviously the 2 times with Taker, even the match with Cena, and I think John Cena came out of that match a much better wrestler. I think you really schooled him in a lot of things. I mean, I've never been a big Cena fan. I'll be real honest with you there. But, coming out of that match, I always felt like he actually got better after being in the ring, and especially the rematch you guys had on Raw was fantastic. But literally, I go back to 1996 when you were champion the first time, and I think probably the match that stands out the most, and Mick Foley talks about it all the time, is the match you had at Mind Games. The stuff that you guys did in that match, and this was really right before the Attitude Era when, ECW was blooming and, you had the hardcore style. And you guys were in Philly, and you guys brought out the chairs, you brought out the tables. Some of the bumps you guys did in that match was just hellacious. The super kick off the chair with Foley holding the chair, the backdrop through the table from the top rope. Just insane. To me, I mean, there was no definitive finish for that match, but that one kind of stands out as one where you were so aggressive toward the Mankind character that if I had to choose right now, I'd say that's absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, that's one where I have to make a ton of credit, because that was one that, if I recall, I think I was champion then, and
yes,
we were doing good, but it was, you could sort of feel a little bit too much of the getting too much of the goody two shoes, boy. I needed some edge, and Mick just came up with with his ECW background and then the Mankind character. I mean, obviously I knew I had to be aggressive with him just from a match standpoint, but I think what helped a great deal in that, obviously, us being able to have a lot more liberties, and him him to be able to use some of that ECW background in our match. I mean, to me, it's something that I don't know, I guess with all the other stuff we did, sort of gets overlooked. But to me, when I can remember him saying, well, I just thinking about, or two things. He wanted me jumping off the ring apron and pulling him backwards on the cement floor. You know what I mean? Ripping up the pad on the floor, and then I jumped off the apron and pulled his head back. You know what I mean? And he hit the back of his head. That, and then the suplex where he hit his ankle on the
ring steps.
The ring steps.
Yeah.
Were two things that that he threw out there, and I thought, you know what? I said that's just subtle, little different. Again, people can grasp waffling the back of their head on the cement and know how much that hurts and how much it stuns you, and then whacking your ankle.
Yeah.
And to me, those two things stood out to me as he was talking about that. It's like, dude, this is just I already dig this. And I immediately loved the way that he was approaching the match. You know what I mean? And there was another little thing where he scissored me and dropped me back, and he was, going for the claw, and I sort of, that was like before the UFC stuff was really out there, because it's like I've got you in the guard. You know what I mean? He goes, just turn around and just start, he says, just start pounding me. Because you could hit that mask, you could just punch it with your fist and it didn't really bother him. We did that. And again, just subtle little things like that. But I thought, this is going to make this match look a lot more brutal. And then the coup de grace for it all was, and again, it was funny because Mick, he was just, he was very nice. He's like, I've noticed that, every now and then, like if somebody messes up something in the match, you get pretty mad. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm working on that. What I mean? And he says, well, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't know if it was like the year before, whatever it was. He goes, because if I recall, I could have sworn it was before the Vader thing. But he had seen me like lose it on somebody in a match, and he said, I'd like to do a thing. He goes, what do you think about doing something? It's funny because years later, people still ask me, like, hey, did he mess that up? It's like, no, that was something, it's something he wanted to do in the match. So he shoots me into the rope, into the corner, and I go for, like, I jump up there like I'm going for a cross body, and, like, he just walks away. You know what I mean? And, I go running across the ring, like, yelling at him and start pounding on him. You know what I mean? But that was something, like, he wanted to do. Like, it was him messing up a point in the match, and me, like, just, like, going off on him because I obviously done that to people at that time. I was under a lot of stress.
I've seen you yell at camera people quite a bit to get out of the way early in your career.
Oh yeah, no, I was. Make no mistake about it, I was no choir boy. That's for sure.
Now I got to ask you this. It's weird because we're jumping all over your career, but man, with your career, it's hard to go in order. But I mean, just. Basically, the two things that I've always wondered, One more recently with the Ric Flair retirement match. Right before you hit the sweet chin music and you told him you loved him, where did that come from? Was that a spur of the moment thing, or did you have that planned?
No, I mean that was that whole match. I mean, I was, it was probably about 4 days before that, 4 or 5 days before the match, and laying in bed, and just not being able to sleep, and thinking about it, and all of a sudden, the whole thing just sort of came to me. You know what I mean? And so I got up out of bed. I remember most of it like it was yesterday. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I went out there, and I just started writing. You know what I mean? I just started writing, and everything was just sort of flowing. And then I sat there, and I could feel this match. You know what I mean? And I was getting, it was just all very, and prior to, as we were building up this match, there were several emotional moments between Rick and I, prior to this, and at the TVs and things like that, and conversations he and I had over the phone, it was a pretty emotional thing. And then just at the end of the match, I was just sitting there in my kitchen, writing all this down. All of a sudden, just overwhelmingly emotional urge came over to me, and I just thought, this is how I feel. You know what I mean? And I went ahead and wrote it down. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there, with the tears in my eyes and stuff like that. I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, who knows what this will be like in the morning? I'll probably wake up and go, oh, this is gay. I'm not doing. I had to get. Oh, by the way, no offense to. That's just a word I'm using. By the way, it's
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Say true to Seinfeld. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, somebody got my Seinfeld reference. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So about 2 days before the match, I presented it sort of to him and Michael Hayes, and I said, all right, this has just been, I've been thinking about this, for a couple of days now, and I said, I just really feel like I've got everything. I mean, I just feel like I've got to complete something here. I went through it all, and I told him about that at the end, and Rick just looked at me and patted me on the leg and looked at me with his eyes watering and said thank you. And and Michael Hayes just looked at me and said, dude, I'm done. We're done.
We're done.
So, but yeah, and but that's the thing. I mean, that whole match again, another one of those real moments, and all of that emotion. It was there, weeks before. It was there days before. It was there all that day. It was there during the match. It was there after the match. I mean, that was a very real life emotional moment for everybody involved.
Right. Going back to your two Undertaker matches, I'm partial to the first one. I like that one better. The second one was fantastic. The ending, I still get choked up. The Undertaker tombstoning you for that final time and that walk up the ramp because we all knew it was done.
I was mad at both of them.
Yeah, I hear you. I want to ask you real quick, Shawn, because I know we're running long, but was there anybody in your whole career, before you wrap things up, was there anyone that you would have liked to have worked that you never got a chance to work?
No, I get asked that one a lot. You know what I mean? And I don't. If I truly felt that there was something left undone, I honestly wouldn't have left. You know what I mean? I mean, and I have no doubt that people are gonna, people will come along and oh, geez, that guy's got talent. He probably, boy, it'd be neat to see him and Shawn Michaels match or something. For me, the people, in my era and people before, my era that I wanted to work with, I got them all. I mean, most of mine, quite honestly, were, the era sort of before me, so to speak. My Flairs and my Hogan and my Savage, stuff like that, Arn and Tully, so, if I were to pick somebody like that, I'd have to go back to, like the Harley races or something like that. I mean, there's not, and certainly not, and I don't mean it in an offensive way towards anybody in my generation or after or anything like that. But you mostly have a desire to get in there with the guys you watched. You know what I mean? So, and I got to many years ago I got to get in there with Wally McDaniels and things like that. So a lot of my guys were really done because